say today is about a vision for the future of women in sports. So there's no way that we went from, within our generation not having women's change rooms to as far as we need to be with the, if you will, the women in sport movement. So that's what I want to talk about a little bit, about how we move this conversation forward, what our vision is, and how we get there. This is Erica Wiebe. She won the gold medal in the freestyle wrestling, 75 kilos. This is an amazing woman. I don't know if you guys saw this week, but already post-Olympics, she's doing videos with a fellow wrestler about body image. She's an amazing she's just an amazing woman to have at the forefront of women in sport in Canada. So we love Erica. So they're calling this Olympic Games the Olympic Games of Women. Have you guys heard this? The press is kind of all over this. Yay, it's awesome. Somebody said to me, actually the other day, well, they said that in 1984 too. But every Olympic Games should be the Olympic Games of Women, right? And in 1984, they were running the marathon for the first time, and now we have, more female medalists in a lot of Western countries than their male counterparts. So the U.S., one of the reasons for this Olympics of Women is because the U.S. is seeing the outcomes of Title IX. I'm sure you all know what Title IX is, but basically, in the U.S., institutions of education are not allowed to be sexist in the way that they spend money at all. So high schools, colleges, universities, and that's for everything. But it affected sport the most because they spent so much money on college sport, right? And then suddenly all the money that went to the men's football team, this started in 1972, by the way, suddenly they had to split all this money between the men and the women. And so now you see incredible depth and breadth in women's sport, especially in the US. And that's why the U.S. women would have been the third country overall if they'd been an independent country. They won 27 gold medals. So it just goes to show that when you create those opportunities, we get the outcomes that we want, right? And the second reason that it was the Olympic Games of Women is because we suddenly, in a feminist way, we got woke, we suddenly we realized the way the commentators are talking about women, and nobody was allowed to say any crap on, or else they'd get beat up on Twitter. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I brought some examples just because some of them are, it's sad, but it's kind of funny at the same time. So here's a personal favorite, the BBC, on the judo final, calling the women's final a cat fight, right? Yeah, and of course, you can't, they said that, right? But they didn't get away with it. Lots of people reacted to this, and we're definitely more awake and paying attention now, okay? There's tons of examples, I just chose a few. Here we go, oh yes. We probably saw this one, the NBC guy who said that the US women's gymnastics team, who were utterly dominant and totally amazing, looked like they were girls hanging out at the mall. Top comment. Okay, the body shaming still happens. I don't think you need to speak Spanish to recognize what's going on. Alexa Moreno is a Mexican gymnast who, this kind of stuff was all over Twitter when I Googled it. I found a whole bunch of tweets like this. It's very sad. And the body shaming also, there were a few other examples. The US women's gymnastics was another one where people said that there's a whole long thing on Twitter about how they were too muscular. Right? You can't win. Our own homegrown CBC saying that a proposal's better than an Olympic medal. Awesome. I don't know, this might be my favorite. When the BBC reporter asked Andy Murray what it was like to be the first person to win 2 Olympic gold medals, and I like this person at the bottom who's like, unless women are people, obviously. And to which Andy Murray, to his credit, said, I think Venus and Serena won quite a few times, by the way. So yeah, they're not getting away with it. Okay, this is a famous one from the Chicago Tribune. Who she's married to is obviously more important than her identity. And I couldn't pick my favorite out of these. This one's great too. Katie Ledecky, incidentally, just happened to break the world record on the same day that Michael Phelps tied for silver. So there you go. So anyway, my point being, it's kind of humorous, but that they're not getting away with it. And you know what? We've always talked about women in sport like this. You know, it's only just now, because of social media, because the way the conversation is going, that we're commenting on it and we're saying, no, don't do this. Like, this guy got attacked. I'd be surprised if he still has his job. People are waking up, right? So the question I wanted to put to you guys is, what is our vision for the future of women in sport? Like, what is it that we really want? You want to come in? What's that? Equality, what did you say there?
Women in coaching.
More women in coaching, sports leadership.
To be seen in the same kind of light as a male in terms of just a human being.
Right. To be equal in all ways, right? From media to leadership to opportunities for girls, all right the way up, opportunities for elite athletes, equal opportunities, right? So what I thought about this for a while, actually, and here's what I came up with. Is that what I would really like, oh, I'm tripping over my own cords. What I would really like is to see a future in which we don't have to talk about this anymore, right? That's what we really want. I'm glad you agree with me. Okay, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about, I knew Silken would talk about some of her experience as an athlete. So I wanted to talk about some of my journey with where I came from 50 Women to Kona. I don't know if everyone is aware of this. Yay, I saw a 5Q shirt. Oh, there's one. Yay! So at the Ironman World Championships, you know, after the automatic qualifiers, they have 35 slots for the women, for the pro women, and 50 for the men, right? And there's a large group of us who think this is utterly unfair. Now, this had come to my attention a few times, but the real trigger for me was, and I don't even know if I'm giving you guys inside info. This was published publicly, so. But in September, 2 years ago now, we got an email from Andrew Messick, the CEO of Ironman, right? And in that email, it said basically, like, to condense this down, I wanted to show you just to show you that it's real. He basically said, regarding slot parity, we're not going to do it. We think that the way we're doing it is fair. And then in the last point in the email, he said, and we're having new standards, and you're not allowed to bitch on social media anymore about this. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, and so I was there sitting in my living room going, what? Like, and then just radio silence. I mean, radio silence from the other pros, from age group women, nothing. I'm like, does nobody react to this the way I do? Like, you can't say we're not creating equality after you've asked for it. This is after there was a series of meetings in Boulder. I mean, we had asked for it. And then tell us to be quiet about it. I mean, there's something not right about that, right? So my approach really was just to get educated. So I educated myself in the history of women in triathlon, the fact that triathlon has an amazing history of gender equality, which is something that could be a whole another talk on itself. And then also, as a side thing, I was an academic before I was a professional athlete. So it's my instincts to kind of like go to the library when you want to find out. So I learned an awful lot about women in sport, about the academic conversation about feminist theory in relation to sport, yada, 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 right? And so one of the things that really struck me in my journey is that I realized when the second wave of feminism came in, and I don't expect everyone to know what I'm talking about there, but Simone de Beauvoir wrote a book called The Second Sex, and her observation was that in our society, man is the human and woman is other. That was her, and man is active and woman is passive, you know, and that is, even though we've come a long way, you know, we're not in 1949 anymore, right? We haven't come as far as we need to go in society in general in terms of women's rights, right? And you see that in terms of equal pay, you see that, I mean, I don't need to give you guys all the examples, but it occurred to me while I was doing this research that actually women doing sport, right, is actually kind of countercultural in that way. Like, women, you cannot do sport and be passive. you're active. That's like women being active, women being aggressive. These images of women doing sport or writing about women doing sport, it's a really powerful thing, and actually it's not just for the women doing sport, but actually could have a large scale effect on our society, right? And so suddenly I was like, this is like my aha moment. I'm sure hundreds of people realized this before me, but that was my aha moment. I'm like, oh, this could be really important, right? And so I truly believe that having more women, the media is a massive thing. I mean, 4% of mainstream coverage is of women's sport. And so, and obviously then 96% is men. I mean, that needs to be, if it was 50-50 and we had images of active women in our culture, I mean, how amazing would that be for our culture, right? Are you guys following me here? Is that, this makes sense? Okay, so that was like kind of my realization and my journey. And so, so I grabbed a bunch of images. These are a lot of some sports that I've had the opportunity to cover. This is netball, by the way. I know we don't do netball here, but it is awesome. And in New Zealand, they play it on like primetime TV, right? So there's leagues and people are professionals, and they're like, it's amazing. Okay, fencing. There's Sarah Enbro, one of our Canadian Olympians. Yay! Being not passive. Mountain biking. Did anyone do the cross triathlon today? Yay! Right? Women getting dirty. Love it. Ghislaine, she was on the bronze medal team for rugby, the Canadian women. Woo, rugby sevens, yay. Okay, we have our para-athlete Kate, who will be competing in a couple weeks in Rio. I don't know this one personally, but I like this shot. Again, it's just about images, right? Equestrian, like the only egalitarian sport really that exists, where the men and women go head to head. You have to love it, even though I know nothing about it. You have to love it. Okay, this one, weightlifting. Okay, imagine if we didn't have this image on TV only every 4 years, right? And instead we had, on primetime TV, I mean, I know you can find it if you look through like the minor channels, but like, what a change in cultural perception of what women are and what they're capable of and what we can do if we had this. Golf, just going for variety here. Cricket, love the cricket. Basketball. Okay, and back to Erica.
That was awesome.
That was awesome, wasn't it? Did you guys? Yay! Okay, so before I talk too long, okay, basically it's a big question with some simple answers. What can we do, right? So the first thing I thought of that we can do to make a change is to actually watch and attend, right? So they tell you, oh, but people don't want to watch women's sport. That's why we never play it, right? Well, actually, I do want to watch women's sport. And if it was on prime TV, I would watch it. And I would bring my daughter, and I would sit down and I would watch it. Well, it is on TV. And attendance, too. I mean, find a women's sporting event, go and support the team. And that's going to make all the difference for how they make their money and how we can get, it's just little by little by little, right? We get more money into these sports, we get more media, and it continues, right? Second one, obvious, encourage others. I just had to say it because it's obviously something that we can do and that you all probably do in your lives. Encourage kids, talk to your daughters about sport, talk to your sons about women in sport. Play, that's the big one for this weekend. We're all here to play. One of the magical things I think about triathlon is that you never know who you're going to inspire. And I often think that, everyone who's there has been inspired by, especially in the long distance, they've been inspired by seeing someone on the course and going, oh, you're kind of like me. So if you can do that, I can do that, right? Like, that's how it goes. And you never know. Like if you're running down the street, you never know. And during your marathon or your 30K run, you never know who you've inspired, right? So I think that just actually getting out there and playing. Has anyone had this experience where you like put your picture of your first triathlon on Facebook, and people from your high school are like, you did a triathlon? Wow. And then they think, well, if you can do it, I can do it. And that's how it works. And that's what's amazing about our sport in particular, I think. So just playing, being out there, smiling while you're doing it, I also think, and I know some people like hate social media and tell me to get off my phone all the time, but I think that like recording, writing, taking pictures, sharing these things, I think this can have a huge effect. One of my neighbors who's from Saudi Arabia told me that Instagram is changing opportunities for women in Saudi Arabia because they didn't know that other women weren't as oppressed as they are until Instagram, and they had all these pictures of women wearing whatever they wanted. And these women who had been denied access to the internet were kind of like, oh, well, wait a second. Well, maybe I want to wear that. Maybe I don't want to wear this thing anymore. You know, and that's likewise in a smaller, that's a very extreme example, but on a smaller level, that's how we now have social media and can spread around in the same way that Twitter can call out crappy commentators about their stupid comments. We can spread around whatever message we want, and it will get shared and it will get out there. So, and you can do it in whatever form you want. You know, you can blog, you can take a picture, you can do this and that. So I think these things are like what we can really do. I really found, especially getting involved with 50 Women to Kona and the other women who are pushing for it, that my voice could make a difference, right? So I sat on it for months after we got that horrible letter from Andrew Messick and thought, no, you know what, I need to say something. And then realized that the power of that and the knock-on effect. So, and that's the same for all of us. I'm not special in that way. So, yeah, so that's what I want to leave you with.